Hi and welcome to our first episode of Ramen Relationships. This is Gouri.
And I'm Rohit. And today we'll be talking about all things relationship. Starting with the biggest question, why are relationships important?
So why are they important, Rohit?
I think the main reason is that in a relationship, its importance comes out of the sense of belonging that it gives us, the sense of security, the emotional support that it gives a certain person. And that further on carries on all through their lives, such as right from infancy till where they are today.
Yeah, I think the first relationship that you actually form is with your mother,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
Yeah. And I think that's the most powerful relationship that you can have because simply it is unconditional on just every single count from both sides.
So what do we feel? What do we expect from relationships? What do we feel a perfect, so-called perfect relationship should be?
There is no such thing as a perfect relationship. It really comes down to what you're willing to give up in that relationship. What is it that you aspire to get out of the relationship? And what is that thing doing for you? Now, a lot of people can live their lives in complete seclusion and isolation. And some choose to. But the majority of the people don't. And because as human beings, we are social creatures. We were born that way. And when we engage in relationships, whether they be on the school ground as kids, or in love initially, or later on in marriage, we are establishing relationships across different roles. As brothers, sisters, friends, mentors, husbands, employees, employers, at all points of our lives, we are surrounded by relationships right from the moment we get up till we go to bed at night, mostly.
So what I do understand is a relationship gives us a sense of belonging, a sense of, as Rohit mentioned as well, it's somewhere where you can be seen, somewhere you can feel at home. It's something that keeps you grounded. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, it does. And nobody can ever say that I made my life or I'm a self-made man. A lot of people like to say that they're self-made people. Nobody is really a self-made person. At some point in time, you had a relationship where the other person cared for you. And you could harp all about your own accomplishments. But in my experience, I've seen that people consider their contributions towards somebody else's life as to be the highlight of their careers, lives, or whatever it is. So it's the desire, the natural human desire to contribute to someone else's life that actually makes us who we are today. So that's an essential element of being in a relationship.
And what I personally believe, every relationship, and it could be for a short duration, could be a longer duration, but everyone comes into our lives to play a role.
Yeah.
And I think as long as we as human beings can understand what role are we playing versus what role are they playing towards us. And there are times in relationships you understand it too late. But the point is that you understand.
Yeah, and also, and this is a very fluid subject. A lot of people look at relationships in terms of on a transactional basis. They'll say like, what's in it for me? And unfortunately, as one sees generations go by, I can just see the natural pattern moving towards relationships being looked at in a more transactional way instead of what they were initially meant to be.
And I also feel, Rohit, that is because of lack of acceptance.
Yeah.
Because earlier we were in joint families. I mean, I've been, I got married into a joint family.
Yeah. And also, if I remember, I come from an armed forces background, so I can talk about this. Growing up, we grew up in the military compounds, and being in the Army and the Air Force and the Navy community, our neighbors and all, we were a very tight-knit community. And people at that time used to live a lot in joint families as well. And living in a joint family, living in confined spaces, you're forced to forge relationships.
Right.
If you really want any kind of a life for yourself.
Right.
But as subsequent generations have come across, people are choosing, more of nuclear families. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm not casting a judgment on that. But people are choosing neutral families. They're living in larger and larger houses with bigger and bigger rooms. You don't get to see your kids for days on end. And I have experience with that. I have 2 boys, and so does she. So the level of interaction has gone down, and the online thing hasn't really done relationships any favors, by the way. And that's a topic for a whole different episode. But clearly, one thing I've seen that as generations progress, people are separating from one another, and they don't seem to have any qualms about that. And that is, in a way, a bit sad.
Because I think everyone's on this thing that I can do it alone, as you mentioned.
Right.
If I can do it alone, we don't need anyone. But again, I think the bottom line is because we're talking about relationships, and why do we need relationships? Why do we need a relationship, and what kind of a relationship really completes us?
So, I know one thing for sure, Gauri. Relationships for us, they are literally like a mirror being shown to us in front of ourselves. They show us who we truly are. What are we made out of? Because if I'm living alone as an isolationist, I get to decide who I am. That's my own determination, whether it's true or false. I'm the only person deciding. But if I have a relationship, again, in any one of those areas that I just mentioned, you have people to show you your strengths, your weaknesses, your blind spots. And in the process, you also see your values and your principles. So it's literally like looking into a mirror and seeing all sides of you that you directly cannot see because you don't have a mirror in front of you. So I think the single most powerful contribution of a relationship is to show you a mirror. And for people who've been married for any point in time, I think the biggest mirror is shown to you by your spouse. I mean, again, at the stage when you're married. In other cases, your friends show it to you before that. Before that, it's your parents and your family that show it to you. And after a certain point, your children show it to you. But at any single point in time, we are seeing mirrors and we are seeing ourselves in the mirror. Now, one can have a good life if you come to the point and you evolve to a point that you like what you see in a mirror. Because if you consistently don't like it, and there will always be times that you won't like what you see in the mirror. Now, the point is, what are you going to do about it? You can either get defensive and say that doesn't matter, I can handle it. I don't need people, I don't need their opinion, and that has become such a fad nowadays. I don't care what people think. I don't care what this person thinks of me. Sure, don't think about what people think of you, but there should be people who actually care for you. If they don't care for you, don't consider what they think. But there are people who genuinely love you, they care for you, their opinions matter.
But if you see nowadays, it's as I said, okay, it's your closest people that you probably would have issues with, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you really can't look at them as a mirror. I mean, yeah, as a mirror, but I think it's more how you deal with situations, you deal with the relationship you are in, and so if I'm looking at myself, that okay, I'm seeing a mirror, but again, it boils down to how am I seeing him as a mirror? He may point out, somebody could be extremely critical, right? And they could be pointing out only defects in you. I mean, I'm just giving you an example that now that doesn't really become my mirror. I have to be smart enough to draw my boundary and not let that affect me if I'm in a relationship with a critical person. And I think that's something where we lack.
So I think then the issue becomes, you have to learn to choose your mirrors.
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
That's a valid point.
And when people get misguided, when they get narcissistic about themselves, clearly it's people telling them that, oh my God, you're so great. Right? And that's how they look at that as a mirror and say, that is the truth. So you've got to have the guts, the balls to choose the right mirror.
But okay, you and me have spoken so much and we've understood that, but how do people who are watching us or who are trying to understand this concept understand who's the right mirror?
Damn good question. So if I was to think about that, so by the way, Gouri and I decided that towards the end of each episode, we'll toss out a question for you to just ponder about. Think about the question. It's not, sometimes it could be specific, sometimes it could be a generic question, but it'll definitely be a question that'll make you think about your life at least for a certain period of time. Could be 30 minutes, could be 3 minutes. We don't know. The question that I would say to answer your question, Gauri, is have a frank talk with yourself. And this time you are looking at the mirror, looking at yourself. And ask yourself the question, what is it that I stand for?
And sometimes you may not get the right answer.
That's good, but at least you've had the conversation. And sometimes conversations are what's more important than finding the answer. So when you look at yourself, or rather just think about it to yourself, what is it that you stand for? And what is it that you do not stand for? Now, do you have enough courage to be the kind of a person that you always wanted to be? And if you are, then you will have some wonderful conversations with yourself. And so I must tell you, one of my favorite books is this book by Richard Bach. It's called One.
Mm-hmm.
And I read this back when I was in college. And I can never forget what was written on the back cover of the book. And it was a small little quote that said, I gave up my life to become the person I am today. Was it worth it? And that is such a powerful question. It really, really hits you hard. Because if you ask yourself that question at different points in your life, maybe even once in a year, if you find yourself answering the question honestly, by the way, as a no, then it's time for you to change something in your life. But if the answer is yes, then at least you know that your mind is clear and ready to choose the right mirror. So then when you're choosing the right mirrors for yourself, or any mirror for yourself, you know you have a much higher chance of choosing the right mirror. Can one choose the right mirror all the time? Not a chance. But you can get better at it, provided you're willing to ask the right questions. If you ask the wrong questions, you get the wrong answers.
My take is a tad bit different.
Go on.
I would say that you need to be connected with yourself.
Oh yes.
And I
Absolutely,
think
I agree.
as long
But that's not
as
different. That's not different from what I said, because I said
Right.
you have to have the guts to ask yourself the right questions. That means you are striving to get a connection with yourself.
So if I say you have to be connected with yourself is, firstly, I think you need to be honest enough to ask that why you even looking into the mirror and asking yourself this question, right? Truthful enough to be honest enough to yourself. I think that's somewhere the hardest part, because all of us are so busy with lives that how many of us are really taking time out? And I'm in the profession where I bring confidence to each and every one. But what I see lacking is when you don't have a connection to yourself, you're depending on whatever anyone's point of view is. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a wrong thing, but as I've grown through the years, I have never really looked at people for advice. It's always about, yes, you take advice when you really do trust someone, but it's very few people, and I think that's where I can talk about this, because I have always been connected to myself. And when you talk about values and stuff like that, and when you realize that the other partner doesn't really have that, they don't really think on the same lines, even today when we have children, why are so many parents having problems with children? That's because the values we've grown up with, maybe we kind of messed up giving the right values to them, so there were times and I've really thought about these things, and when relationships do matter, it's also the peace. When you say I'm coming home to a relationship, right?
Safe spot.
Yeah, a safe space, which is a space that I've created. Now, how much of effort have I put into that space for it to be home? For it to be, and how much of an effort the other person's putting in to make it home.
So let me remind you about something that we spoke about over a year back. And I still remember what you said. And we were talking about somebody who was asking you for some help. And after you had the call with her, you said to me that, the same thing came up. And you said people are not they don't have a connection with themselves. And you also said that if you don't have a connection with yourself, how can you possibly have an effective connection with somebody else?
Because then your value is
No,
dependent
so
on the other
you
person.
said that. You said that.
Absolutely.
No,
I mean,
so
I'm
I
also,
remember that.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
moment you
yeah.
said this, I said, yeah, I remember that one
Yeah,
conversation
yeah.
so well. Yeah, so that matters hugely. And also, this could be a slightly different thing, but medical studies have actually proved
Right.
that people who have strong relationships tend to have better health than people who don't.
Yeah, but apparently all the problems, all the health problems that we have are all psychological. They start from your mind. So, so when you're saying, look at yourself and ask yourself the hard questions, you're looking in the mirror, you're actually getting into your mind.
So that's our opinion on why relationships are important. And frankly, we are keeping this podcast as short as possible, but because we could go on talking about this for hours.
But we'd love to hear what you think of it, and we'd love to hear what you'd like to hear us speak about. I know this is the first episode, but it would definitely help us plan further episodes.
So you tell us, why are relationships important? Because again, if we're just talking among ourselves with you, we'd love to hear what you have to say. So you never know. I mean, we could also, and we would want to learn from you in the process. So let's have it at that. And it's a homework, if you might call it that, is what do you hold dear? And if you have comments about why a relationship is important, let us know. We'd love to hear about it. And of course, we have to do that age-old closing. Like, share, subscribe.
It's a
You know
first
the drill.
episode.
You know the
Yeah.
drill. So you know what to do. And we'll be trying and dropping this thing every Friday, a new episode every Friday. Next one will have a few modifications in it, something that you'll love, and there'll be a whole new topic. And we look forward to having you with us. So all the best. Stay happy, stay connected, and build all the best relationships you can.
And we will see you soon.
You will. Good night.
Good night.